we're most honoured to have Lord Andrew Adonis, who's a former Labour minister and one of the leading critics of Brexit. He was at the Leeds Great March yesterday, and we're very honoured to have him here today too. So a big round of applause.
Thank you. Well, it's great to be here in Newcastle. There hasn't been much interaction so far, so let's get going. What do we think of Brexit? Stop Brexit. Come on, after me. What do we think of Brexit? Stop Brexit. Come on, that wasn't very loud. What do we think of Brexit? Stop Brexit. What does Newcastle think of Brexit? Stop Brexit. What does the northeast of England think about Brexit? Stop Brexit. Okay, that's the mood we need to get into for the rest of the afternoon, and that's what we've got to do over the next year. Now, it's fantastic to be here, and it's really inspirational being in front of Lord Grey's monument. If you read the monument, it couldn't be more apposite for today. Look what he did. Look what he did. Fearless and consistent champion of civil and religious liberty. Well, what are we all today? We are fearless and consistent champions of Britain's place in Europe and an open society. So what he did then, 200 years ago, we're doing now today. Now, we're all, most of us are Brits, and so we're all very polite to each other, and even when I appear with Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nigel Farage on the telly, we do our best. No, we do our best to be civil because we've all got to get along. I say to my good friend Nigel Farage that I will swap my membership of the House of Lords for his German passport anytime if he calls me a twisted weasel, which I've now put on my Twitter. I'm now a twisted weasel. That's the greatest compliment that Mr. Farage has ever paid me. I don't tell you what I say about him. But then we come to Mr. Rees-Mogg. Now, Jacob Rees-Mogg, you'll know that the President Macron, when he came over to England recently, he's lending us the Bayeux Tapestry. I'm not sure it's necessarily the most appropriate thing to be displaying in Britain over the next year or two, but nonetheless, we're very grateful to him that it's leaving Bayeux apparently for the first time in 8 centuries. But apparently he wants something in return. And I have suggested to Her Majesty the Queen that in return for the Bayeux Tapestry, we send the French Jacob Rees-Mogg. And he should be put in display in the Louvre as an exhibition of all that has made Britain so great over the last 7 or 8 centuries. But I have to tell you, my friends, that President Macron has said that he's not content to have Jacob Rees-Mogg on the grounds that the Bayeux Tapestry is much, much more recent than Jacob. However, what I do tell you, and what we all know, is that the deal we're going to get leaving the European Union will be worse than any deal this country has had since 1066. Because it will be the first time we have voluntarily wrenched ourselves out of our continent, declared that we're going to have nothing more to do with it at all, and sacrifice our trade in consequence. We should never do that as a country. It's completely wrong. It's betraying the British people. And there are 3 big reasons, I just want to tell you briefly now, why we should fight it tooth and nail over the next year. The first reason is Ireland. Do we have any Irish friends here today? Anyone with Irish? Yeah, a few? Anyone with Irish ancestry? Well, you cannot have Brexit without a hard border in Ireland. And the three words that sink Brexit without trace are Good Friday Agreement. Good Friday Agreement. What do we want as a country? What do we have a solemn duty as a country to carry through? It is peace in Ireland, which means no border in Ireland. So let's repeat that. No border in Ireland. Given the way that Britain has treated Ireland over the last centuries, the idea that we could be responsible for erecting new barriers between the peoples of Ireland is absolutely monstrous, and we should have nothing to do with it at all. And don't listen to all of this flim-flam about somehow we're going to have this frictionless border. Have you heard this, the frictionless border? This border which isn't really a border. Apparently the model for this border that is frictionless and isn't really a border is supposed to be the Canadian-US border. The Canadian-US border has soldiers with machine guns on it, and it has armed police, and it has dogs. Who here wants to see all that in the, on a new border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland? The only way of ensuring that there is no border in Ireland is to have no Brexit. So what is our message to the people of Ireland? Stop Brexit. Come on, again, stop Brexit. Because we are not going to be agents of imposing new borders in Ireland, dividing the Irish people and potentially leading to a return of the Troubles. Secondly, trade. Now, nowhere knows the importance of trade more than the northeast of England, and in particular Newcastle, Gateshead and Sunderland. This is the only part of the United Kingdom where there is actually a positive trade balance. Those of us who come from down south, we deal in these invisible things which are called services. We don't actually sort of make anything that is physical in the way that you do in the northeast. Here in the northeast, you make more cars than anywhere else in England. I'm glad to say, because you may know I'm a bit of a train buff, you're now making trains too. The great Japanese company Hitachi is coming to Newton Aycliffe and is starting to make trains here. For the first time in a century, there will be trains made in the northeast of England. When I persuaded Hitachi to come and set up their company here, they came to set up a company called, wait for it, Hitachi Europe. What they want to do is to make trains in Newton Aycliffe, which they will sell, I'm glad to say, to us here in Britain, but also which they can export to the whole of Europe. That is great. But if we're going to have more trade,
I'm so sorry, Lord
we're going to have more trade.
We've got some unwelcome visitors.
Come on, let's give them a message. Stop Brexit. Come on, what's our message? Stop Brexit. Deal with the Brexit monstrosity.
Exit
Brexit.
Get
Exit
that monstrosity out of here.
Exit Brexit. Exit Brexit.
Get that monstrosity
Out of here. Exit Brexit. Exit Brexit.
Get that monstrosity out of here.
Okay.
Exit Brexit.
Exit Brexit. Get that monstrosity out of here. We've made our point. I think it's going to go away quite fast. So, trade. If we want to keep our trade, keep our jobs, not these mythical trade treaties. You remember the ones that Liam Fox now tells us is going to start negotiating with Antarctica, with islands in the South Pacific, with these places which apparently we don't have trade with at the moment, which are somehow going to substitute for Ireland, France, Denmark, Germany, Belgium, Italy, the 27 other members of the European Union. That's all for the birds. So what's our message on trade and jobs? Stop Brexit. Come on, again. Stop Brexit. Third reason why we stay in Europe is because we are Europeans. We are proud to be English, to be British, to be Europeans. One of the best things that's happened about Brexit in the last 2 years is for the first time in this country we see loads of European flags. There is no incompatibility at all between being a great fan of Newcastle, of Gateshead, of England, of Britain, of Europe, indeed even the world. We are one human race. We should be proud to get along. We should not be erecting barriers. It doesn't matter what the colour of our passports. What matters is that we can travel freely across Europe. We don't erect new barriers, and we absolutely do not discriminate against other Europeans, least of all other Europeans who live in this country and who make a huge contribution to it and are every bit as much English and Brits as those of us who lived here for longer. And of course, the thing about the English is that we're all immigrants. My family came from Cyprus 50 years ago. I'm a proud Cypriot. I'm proud to be English. I'll let you into a secret. I'm even proud to be a Londoner. But all of those things are part of being in modern Europe. One final point. There are people out there who tell us that we should roll over, that somehow the only exercise in democracy that this country is ever going to experience was one referendum 2 years ago. Our message to them is that democracy continues. There are 52 weeks until we leave the European Union. The British people want their say on Mrs May's treaty. 2 years ago, remember what we were told 2 years ago? 350 million for the NHS, well that's gone. We've already agreed a 39 billion exit deal from the US. Remember we were told that we were going to have a massive invasion of the Turks and others who are going to come over in their millions if we stayed in the European Union. Well, that doesn't seem to have materialised either. We were told we could have this global Britain that will be trading with all these countries which Europe stops us. Well, the global trade treaty that we were supposed to be doing first was, remember who that was with? Donald Trump. Well, what's Donald Trump done in the last month? He's slapped a 25% tariff on British steel, which he has graciously lifted as a temporary measure. But the idea that that is our future is for the birds. The British people want their say on Brexit over the next year. There are 52 weeks still to go, 52 weeks when we can have our say. And do you know why we need our say? It's not the 52 weeks that matter, it's the 52 million people who live in England, all of whose futures will be trashed if we leave the European Union. So 52 weeks to fight for 52 million people. And remember, Howard Wilson said, 1 week is a long time in politics. In 52 weeks, we can save this country, and Newcastle will be out there, up front, fighting to stay in Europe. And once more, what's our message from Newcastle to the country at large? Stop Brexit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lord Adonis. Sorry we had to briefly interrupt you there.